Hey guys, HackerSploit here, back again with another video, and in this video we're going to be looking at DNS enumeration. So this is a video that a lot of you guys again have requested, and shockingly enough I haven't covered this topic on the channel, so I look to do so quite extensively because it is very important, especially when it comes down to active information gathering. And for those of you interested in the bug bounty videos, this is sort of an introduction into that, and I'll be showing you how to use a plethora of tools. One of them is Dig. I will be looking at how to use host and Nslookup. So let's get started. So the first question you might be having when talking about DNS enumeration is, what exactly is a DNS server and why are we trying to enumerate information from this server? Well, a DNS server is essentially a server or computer on the internet that resolves host names or domains to their IP addresses. So for example, if I type in google.com in my browser, that query is sent to a DNS server. The DNS server then resolves google.com to its IP address. A request is then sent to that IP address, and then the web page is sent back to my browser, and then the browser displays it for me. So that's how a DNS server works. Alright, so it is responsible for the management, maintenance, and processing of internet domain names and their associated records. I'll be talking about various DNS records later on in the video, but for now just leave it at that simple definition. So in essence, DNS servers give out name servers and mail server information that the domain is responsible for, and that's the primary bit of information we're looking for. However, when we talk about DNS enumeration, on the other hand, we are looking for a plethora of other information. So the second question you might be having as well is, what exactly is DNS enumeration? Well, DNS enumeration is also referred to as DNS interrogation, because that's essentially what you're doing. You're essentially querying it for various pieces of information. So what information is this that you're querying for? So the whole process of DNS enumeration essentially involves the techniques that are going to be used to gather information, like, for example, computer names, IP addresses, mail servers, the associated name servers, and various other DNS records. And as I said, we'll be looking at this, and I'll hopefully explain each and one of them. So the tools we'll be using in this video are going to be Dig, Host, the host tool, and Nslookup. Alright, now I'm aware the other tools that exist for DNS enumeration, like DNS Recon, all the other tools in regards to DNS reconnaissance and enumeration. However, I don't want to cover them right now because it is very important to understand how to do this manually. Alright, so I'll be covering DNS enumeration in this video, and then zone transfers will be covered in the next video, as I want to separate those two topics. Alright, so let's get started, and let's use the first tool, which is host, which is probably the simplest one that many of you have probably used already. So host by default is used to determine what domain a particular IP address resolves to. So for example, if I type in host and my website HackerSploit.com, and I hit enter, it will essentially find what IP address HackerSploit.com resolves to. So you can see it'll tell me right over here, HackerSploit resolves to two addresses, 104.18.42.9, and it also gives me the appropriate IPv6 addresses that it resolves to. And as an additional bonus, it gives us the mail server that HackerSploit.com uses, or the particular mail server that it is handled by. In this case, we have a mail server with mx.stackmail.com with a priority of 10, which is pretty cool. So host does give us quite a good information here. Now, the great thing with host is you can specify the type of information you're looking for if you don't want to go through all the information that it divulges by default. Alright, so for example, if we talk about we are looking for the particular name servers, we can say host T, and we can say we then specify what we're looking for. In this case, we're looking for name servers, which is denoted by NS, and then we type in HackerSploit.com or the website you're trying to look for. We hit enter, and as you can see, it gives us the appropriate name servers associated with the domain HackerSploit.com. So these are the name servers right over here. So from this you can already tell that the website is using Cloudflare as its DNS provider. So from then on, you can then start understanding what type of infrastructure has been set up. You can also do this for mail servers. So for example, I can type in host TMX, which stands for mail servers, or is an abbreviation for mail servers. So host TMX and hssploit.com. All right, and there we are. I'll give you what it already divulged in the beginning, which is the mail server that hssploit.com is using, and the priority which is set right over here, which is also very important for those of you who know what to do with that type of information. All right, now host can also be used for reverse lookup. So for example, if I type in host hssploit.com and I get the address right over here, I can also resolve that particular IP address to the domain. So I can say host the IP address right over here, and hopefully it will resolve to that particular domain name. Or you can use the other address right over here, and if it does give you that error, this is probably because it is going through Cloudflare and it does not allow this. So for example, if I use another website, google.com, and I'll explain the whole process of reverse DNS lookups, but for now I'll just keep it really simple. So we have the google.com address, and this is in reference to the DNS server that I'm using, which is something also very important to take into consideration. All right, so host, and I type in that address, and it'll point us right over here to the pointer, or the pointer record, which from then on we can then get an idea of what a domain it points to. Now I'll explain what PTR record is used for, but for now just let's leave it at that. So now let's take a look at how to use Nslookup for DNS enumeration. We've taken a look at host. It's quite a good tool. We have Nslookup, which is a very extensive tool that I'll probably cover completely in another video, but for now let's look at it and how to use it for DNS enumeration. So we can use Nslookup, which comes pre-installed in Kali, as you pretty much would have guessed. So Nslookup, and the website we are targeting, which is hssploit.com, and I like the way it sort of divulges the information here. So we have the server, that is the DNS server that we're using, and I'll give you the address here. Obviously DNS servers use are found on port 53. That's just information that you pretty much already know. So you have the name here, the address, and it gives you the other address right over here. You have the IPv6 address, so on and so forth. All right, so that is very basic information. Now Nslookup can do a lot more. So if I start up Nslookup and I don't provide any arguments or any parameters for my particular lookup, I'll just hit enter. It gives us this little prompt here, which can be used quite extensively. So for example, if I wanted to select a name servers, I can essentially say set type is equals to name servers, and then I type in the domain that I want to target and hit enter, and it'll tell us right over here the non-authoritative answer is going to be it'll give us the various name servers associated with the domain. In our case, we only have 2 name servers, and they both point to Cloudflare. So there you are, and it also gives you your authoritative answers right over here. And it also kindly resolves for us the name servers to their particular addresses, which is really cool. All right, you then have you can also then specify the mail servers, which you can do by setting the type to mx, and we then type in hssploit.com and hit enter, and that'll give us our mail servers right over here. And there we are, we have the mail exchanger, which is set to a priority of 10, and mx.stackmail.com. Right over here, you have the authoritative answers, which do give you the name servers that are associated with that domain. And finally, it does resolve the name servers for us, which is really cool. So that is how to use Nslookup for DNS enumeration. I'm not really covering how to use Nslookup completely, but I'll be sure to make a complete video on that. So now let's take a look at Dig, which is primarily the reason why a lot of you guys are watching this video. So let's talk about Dig now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to exit here, and I'll exit out of that and clear the terminal. And now let's talk about Dig. So Dig is probably one of the most commonly used tools for DNS enumeration, and for that reason it is known as the DNS Swiss Army knife. All right, now before we do that, now, as I said, Dig can divulge quite a lot of information, and is a quite extensive tool when it comes down to DNS servers and DNS server enumeration. So talking about record types, now on the screen you should see an image that will explain, sort of give you an infographic of what exactly I'm talking about. We usually have record types that belong to a particular domain. So we have the A record type firstly. With the A record essentially holds the IP address associated with the domain in question, You then have the AAAA or the the quadruple A record, which essentially holds the IPv6 address for the domain in question. You then have the CNAME, which is very important, the canonical name record, which essentially maps one domain to another or is used to map one domain to another. So you can, when performing DNS enumeration and you're looking for CNAME enumeration in particular, this will essentially give you information like whether or not a domain is mapped to another domain. You get the idea, and I'll show you that in a second. You then have the MX record, which we've taken a look at. This essentially lists the addresses associated with the mail exchanger. You then have the PTR record, which is the pointer record, which essentially are used for which are used in reverse DNS lookups. I'll pretty much be making an independent video on that. You then have the AXFR record, which is the authority for zone transfer. This is something that a lot of people don't know about, but we'll be taking a look at it more in depth when we talk about zone transfers. This is used to make the name server return all the records for a particular domain. Now, as you guess, this is very useful, as we'll see in the next videos, as it can divulge potential internal IP addresses and private subdomains that could be containing vulnerable web applications, so on and so forth. Alright, so let's get started with using dig. Again, dig comes pre-installed in Kali Linux. So to use dig for a simple domain lookup, we type in dig and hssploit.com. For example, hssploit.com, and there we are. Dig will give us the appropriate IP address. The global options, I'm not going to show you all the parameters you can specify with dig. You can pretty much use the dig and the help command right over here to give you all the options, but for now I'll just be going through the basic options that you can specify in regards to the records. So you have the question, it sorts it out really well, and it also sorts it out in regards to the records right over here. And the inbound and outbound, but I'll get to that in a second. So you have your question section, which we prompted hssploit.com. We really did not prompt any particular records, but of course, because we did not prompt any records, it went for the pre-accustomed A record, which simply points out the IP addresses. So there we are. The answer section does point out, I think this is the TTL if I'm not wrong, so total time to live, and the A record for that is set right over here, and you have the IP addresses. You then have the authority section, which gives you the name servers and again the TTL right over here, and the additional section where it does resolve the particular name servers with the appropriate TTL and their IP addresses, which is really cool. It gives you information right over here, the query time, the DNS server in question, and when it was done, so on and so forth. All right, so that is a simple domain lookup. We then have the mail server lookup, which again is very simple. So dig hssploit.com, and we then specify the T command and the type right over here, which is the type of record. So in this case, we can start off with the mail server right over here, and again the question will be answered very simply. So the question right over here is hssploit.com, and the question in type is the mail server or MX record, and the answer is given quite frankly right over here. So TTL, you have the MX record and the priority and the mail exchanger record, which is mx.stackmail.com, and then it gives you all the other information that you pretty much can be expected to receive. I'll show you how to only get the information or how to only display the information you're looking for in a second. We then have the name server lookup, which again is very similar to the mail server and any other record lookup with dig. So now instead of typing MX, we want to type in NS and hit enter. And again, that'll simply give us what we're looking for, which is the name servers, and it does give us there, and also gives us the authority and the additional section which resolves the DNS servers to their particular IP addresses, as is denoted by the fact that it is going by the A records here. All right, so now let's take a look at how to perform lookups for various other record. So for example, we can talk about the AAAA lookup, which will give us the IPv6 addresses. So for example, we can do that by typing in hackersploit.com and AAAA and hit enter, and that gives us the corresponding IPv6 addresses. Now of course, given the circumstances and the occurrences with IPv6, it isn't a popular protocol. However, this is a great way of also querying particular IPv6 addresses for the various domains. So that is how to do it. And again, in regards to your question, you also get the appropriate answer denoted by the particular DNS record that you had specified. All right, you then have your CNAME lookup, which is very important. As I've mentioned, CNAME is the canonical name record and is used to map one domain to another. Now, unfortunately, for my domain, I don't have this enabled. Now, given that I don't have, or my domain does not particularly have a CNAME record, you might be asking, well, what potential information, important information could this divulge? Well, as I said, a CNAME record is used to map one domain to another. So if a website, for example, hackersploit.com, had a CNAME record that was mapped to another address, which or where the web server or the web application could be originally hosted, that could divulge the original address to which hackersploit.com is being mapped to. So that is something very, very important as well. So if you wanted to do that, again, it is very, very simple. We type in dig, the domain in question, and the particular record we're looking for, in this case, which is CNAME. Now, if I hit enter, it'll essentially try and enumerate whether or not I have any CNAME, and as you can see, we do not have an answer section right over here. Now, given the way the output is designed in dig, it is very, very conducive to sort of give out only the information we're looking for, and to return the important data only, or data that is related to the query, or only to get data from the answer section. To do that, dig has a very, very good command that sort of gives us the information we're looking for in particular, and that is the +short command. All right, so the +short command will return only the important information. So let me show you what I mean. So for example, if I was querying, for example, dig hackersploit.com, whoops, sorry, that is the incorrect spelling of dig. So dig hackersploit.com, and T, we're looking for name servers. And because I only want to display, or I only want to get back the information relevant to my query, that being the name servers, I can type in +short, and that'll give me only the name servers. Now, given that we have this flexibility with the data that we can output, we can use dig to create various scripts that automate the process, or that can use the various IP addresses that a particular domain resolves to, and then perform the appropriate Nmap scans on them. We can perform whois scans on them, etc. You get the idea. So I'll show you how to do that in a second. But again, you can do this with any record. So for example, I can say CNAME here, and again, +short, and hit enter, and we don't get any results, which is awesome, and very, very, the correct word for this is very, very useful, because if we don't get a response, or we don't have any CNAME records, we should know immediately, rather than going through the entire output and deducing that step by step. Okay, so when you talk about automation, as I mentioned, we can use various Python scripts. So for example, one of the most common ones that I remember was using dig and then performing a whois lookup, because we're actually writing a one-liner. Syntax is very important, and the line breaks are also very important, as you know, with Python. So for IP in dig, and then we type in hackersploit.com, or any domain that you're using, short, and then this is where I made my mistake. We have to actually terminate right over there, and then we can say do nmap. Otherwise, it was essentially still considering do nmap as part of the initial argument. So do nmap, and then IP address right over here, which is the variable IP, and then we can say done and hit enter. Well, it tells us failed to resolve. It's still taking these options. It's still taking the initial command, the initial arguments right over here. But again, I thought it would pass it to HackerSploit, and indeed it did pass the IP address, but however, it's still taking the others. which is really weird. But anyway, let me know what mistake I made in the script. And of course, you can run this script with other tools that can utilize an IP address. So I can say, for example, who is right over here. Yeah, in that you need to specify the IP address with that particular script. Apologies for that. But anyway, let me know what other scripts you guys can create and what my mistake is here. Now I would essentially pass the value or the results from dig into an nmap scan. So yeah, definitely let me know where I made the mistake. And you guys can always correct me. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you have any questions or suggestions, let me know in the comment section on my social networks, or you can post them at on the forum at HackerSploit.org. You can find the documented version of this tutorial on hsploit.com, and you can post again your questions on hsploit or HackerSploit.org. And you can also support us on Patreon. That is if you want to support the channel. We really appreciate all the support you guys can give us, and we'll be seeing you in the next video. Peace.